Everyone knows the story of the Egyptian pharaohs. Their golden masks, towering pyramids, and legendary power have captivated the world for centuries. But what if I told you that for nearly 100 years, the mighty throne of Egypt wasn't held by an Egyptian at all? What if I told you it was held by conquerors from a powerful African kingdom to the south? This is the story your history books probably left out. The story of the Kushite kings who didn't just conquer Egypt, but saved it. They're often called the Black Pharaohs, rulers who emerge from the heart of Africa to reunite a fractured Egypt and preside over a brilliant but forgotten Renaissance. This is the story of the 25th dynasty. To understand how the Kushites rose, you first have to understand how Egypt had fallen. By the 8th century BCE, the magnificent New Kingdom, the age of Tutankhamun and Ramesses the Great, was a distant memory. Egypt was in chaos, a time historians call the Third Intermediate Period. The country was broken, split into warring territories run by petty kings and Libyan chieftains, all fighting for control. The pharaoh's central authority had completely dissolved. This division was a deep wound to the Egyptian psyche, which treasured Ma'at, the divine ideal of order, balance, and justice. And watching from the south, in the land of Nubia, what is modern-day Sudan, was the powerful kingdom of Kush. For centuries, the relationship between Egypt and Kush was complicated, a mix of trade, cultural exchange, and war. During its imperial peak, Egypt had colonized Nubia, exploiting its rich gold mines and trade routes. But in doing so, Egypt also exported its culture. The Kushites absorbed and adapted huge parts of Egyptian civilization, from their gods like Amun and Osiris to their writing and royal traditions. They didn't see themselves as outsiders, but as the true preservers of the ancient Egyptian way of life. And as they watched their northern neighbor fall apart, they believed the Egyptians had abandoned their gods and lost Ma'at. They believed it was their sacred duty to step in. The Kushite move north didn't start with a bang, but with a quiet power play. The Kushite king Kashta extended his influence into southern Egypt, arriving in the great religious capital of Thebes to claim the title of pharaoh, apparently peacefully. He had his daughter Amenertis I adopted into the powerful religious office of God's wife of Amun, locking down his authority over southern Egypt without spilling a single drop of blood. But it was his successor, Piye, who would truly forge an empire. Piye was a brilliant military strategist and a deeply religious man who saw the political mess in northern Egypt as a sacrilege. When a king in the Nile Delta named Tefnakht formed a coalition to challenge the growing Nubian power, Piye saw it as his call to action. He declared his campaign a holy war. His own words, carved into a massive granite slab known as the Victory Stela, give us a stunning first-hand account of his mission. The stela describes Piye telling his soldiers to ritually cleanse themselves before battle and to make offerings to the great god Amun, who he believed blessed his campaign. He saw himself as Amun's chosen champion, sent to restore order. Piye moved north with a powerful army, a navy, prized Nubian cavalry, and skilled archers. He swept through Egypt, city by city, conquering major centers like Hermopolis and Memphis. But his conquest wasn't just about brute force. To many Egyptians living under corrupt local rulers, Piye was a liberator and a moral reformer. After his victories, he often appointed the defeated kings as his regional governors, a smart move that kept local governments intact. With the conquest of the Nile Delta, Piye had done the impossible. He had reunified a broken Egypt, creating the largest empire seen since the New Kingdom, a single territory stretching from the 6th cataract of the Nile in Sudan all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. For nearly a century, the Kushite kings ruled Egypt as its 25th dynasty. This wasn't an occupation, it was a reunification. The Kushite pharaohs deeply respected Egyptian tradition, and their reign ignited a massive cultural renaissance. They looked back to Egypt's Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms for artistic and architectural inspiration, reviving a classical style that had long since been abandoned. This golden age hit its peak under King Taharqa. He was one of the most powerful rulers of the dynasty, and he governed over a time of peace and prosperity. Helped by an unusually large Nile flood that guaranteed great harvests, the empire thrived. Taharqa launched a building campaign so massive it rivaled the great pharaohs of the New Kingdom. He built and restored temples and monuments up and down the Nile Valley, from his Nubian homeland at Jebel Barkal and Kawa to the great Egyptian temples at Karnak and Memphis. His architectural legacy is a testament to a time when Egyptian and Kushite cultures blended into something new and dynamic. But these rulers weren't just copying Egypt. They brought unique elements of their own Kushite culture, creating a fascinating synthesis. Royal statues from this period show pharaohs with distinctly Nubian features, and they wore a special crown with two cobras, or uraei, instead of the traditional single cobra, to symbolize their rule over both Kush and Egypt. And in one of the most famous moves, they revived the lost Egyptian tradition of pyramid building. More than 1,000 years after Egyptians had stopped building them, the Kushite pharaohs began constructing pyramids again for their tombs, first at El Kuru and later at Nuri. But this golden age wasn't destined to last. A new, terrifying power was rising in the east, the Neo-Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians were a ruthless and brutally effective military machine, and their hunger for expansion soon put them in direct conflict with the Kushite Egyptian Empire. Taharqa clashed with the Assyrians multiple times, trying to stop their westward push. In 701 BCE, he even supported the king of Judah's rebellion against the Assyrian king Sennacherib, an event mentioned in the Bible. But the Assyrians were relentless. In 671 BCE, the Assyrian king Esarhaddon launched a brutal invasion of Egypt, capturing Memphis and forcing Taharqa to flee south. Even then, the fight wasn't over. Taharqa managed to regroup and briefly retake Memphis, but the Assyrians came back under their next king, Ashurbanipal, with overwhelming force. They sacked the great city of Thebes and pushed the Kushites out of Egypt for good. By 656 BCE, the last Kushite pharaoh to claim rule over Egypt, Tantamani, had retreated to the ancestral Nubian homeland. The century-long reign of the Black Pharaohs over Egypt was over. The retreat from Egypt wasn't the end of the Kingdom of Kush. In fact, freed from the burden of ruling such a huge empire, the kingdom flourished in Nubia for another 1,000 years. The capital moved further south to the city of Meroe, which became the heart of a new, distinctly Kushite golden age. It was at Meroe that the Kushites left their most enduring legacy. They kept building pyramids, eventually putting up over 200 of them, more than double the number in all of Egypt. These Meroitic pyramids are a breathtaking sight, steeper and narrower than their Egyptian cousins, and they stand today as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Meroe also became an industrial powerhouse, one of Africa's first major centers for iron production. The massive mounds of slag left over from their furnaces are still visible today. This mastery of technology gave them better tools and weapons, which fueled their economy and military for centuries. And the warrior spirit of Kush lived on. In the 1st century BCE, when the Roman Empire conquered Egypt and tried to push south, they were met by a fierce Kushite queen, or Kandake, named Amanirenas. She personally led her army into battle against the Roman legions, defeated them, and even captured a bronze head from a statue of the Emperor Augustus. As a final act of defiance, she had it buried beneath the steps of a temple in her capital, so her people would symbolically trample on the head of the emperor for eternity. The clash forced the mighty Roman Empire to negotiate a peace treaty and set a formal border, stopping their southward expansion in its tracks. The story of the 25th dynasty is an incredible role reversal, of the colonized becoming the colonizers, and of a forgotten African power that not only ruled one of the ancient world's greatest empires, but also rescued its culture from an age of decay. For centuries, their history was deliberately pushed to the margins, first by later Egyptian dynasties that wanted to erase the memory of being ruled by their southern neighbors, and later by early Western archaeologists who often downplayed the achievements of black African civilizations. But the stones remember what history forgot. The temples restored by Taharqa, the victory stela of Piye, and the hundreds of pyramids rising from the Sudanese desert all tell the story of this incredible kingdom. They are a lasting monument to a time when pharaohs from the heart of Africa ruled the Nile. Why do you think this powerful chapter of history is still so little known?